Vine looked in the mirror nervously while biting her nails. She was wearing a red sleeveless dress that reached till her knees. She kept looking until her husband, Jungkook, came from behind and back hugged her. He dug his head in the crook of her shoulder, sending a shiver in her spine. Vine, how do I look? She asked nervously. Jungkook, ethereal, he said while looking in her eyes through the mirror. She smiled. He is the only one who can calm her anxiety. He held her shoulders and made her turn to him. He held her hands and they were still shivering a bit. He smiled and kissed her gently. She gasped. Her nervousness melted into shock. She closed her eyes and let the kiss happen. It was not the first time they were kissing, but she was already always shy around him. It's been 2 years of their marriage. It was arranged by their parents, but they fell in love with each other soon. Jungkook, don't get nervous of such useless things. You look perfect, just like always, he said after breaking a kiss. Jungkook, my choice doesn't disappoint after all, he said while putting his hand on his hips. She laughed and slapped his arm. He chuckled. Jungkook, let's go now. He offered her a hand. She accepted with a smile and they went downstairs, where guests were waiting for them. Pine and Jungkook's whole family gathered for their second wedding anniversary. Pine, after seeing her mom, immediately went towards her and hugged her. Vine, Mom, Vine's mom, how are you, my daughter? She broke the hug and held Vine's cheeks. Vine, I missed you so much. Her mom looked at Jungkook and said, I don't think so. She smirked. Vine laughed and then her eyes fell on Yoongi, her cousin and best friend from childhood. Her mouth widened and she went to hug him too. Vine, you're here too? How are you? She asked excitingly. Jungkook looked at her getting so excited, and his heart felt strange. Jungkook, wasn't she too nervous a few moments ago? He said annoyingly. Yoongi, how are you? And what's this glow on your face? He looked at Jungkook and smirked. Yoongi, I get it. Fine, and Yoongi laughed. Jungkook, you will get everything once my fist reaches your jaw, he said while clenching his fists. Yoongi held her hand to take her away a bit as he whispered in her ear. He is handsome, by the way. A blush appeared on her face and she couldn't stop it. Yoongi, you're blushing? He scoffed. Vine punched him on the chest and laughed. Jungkook, what is so funny? He murmured to himself. They all met each other and greeted together. Vine and Jungkook cut the cake and then it was time for dinner. Jungkook looked at right and left to find two empty chairs. He smiled as he found them and looked at Vine. Jungkook, Vine, come here. He looked at her and she was already sitting with Yoongi and laughing the whole time. Jungkook stared at her for a few seconds and angrily sat on the chair by himself. He took a fork and stabbed it in the apple while looking at Yoongi. Vine's mom, guess we will be taking our leave now, she said while standing up. Vine went to hug her once again. Jungkook, you need to come more often, he said with a smile. Vine's mom, no, it's your turn this time. Yoongi, yeah, come with Vine any time. I will stay the night once she does. He winked at her. Jungkook's smile disappeared and he stood in front of Yoongi. Jungkook, any time. He forced a fake smile and offered his hand to shake. Yoongi shook hands with him, but Jungkook clenched his hand hardly. Jungkook, it was really nice to meet you. He fake smiled again. Yoongi laughed nervously and left while saying, Bye, Vine. Vine saw Jungkook acting cold, and she got nervous once again. She fake smiled and said, Bye. And they all left. Jungkook's smile disappeared and he went upstairs to his bedroom. Vine followed him slowly while biting her lips. As soon as they entered the room, Jungkook turned back and pinned her to the wall. He did it so fast that it made her startled. Her eyes widened as she looked at him. Jungkook, you are mine, he said in a deep voice. His eyes were dark and his grip on her hands tightened. Vine smirked. Are you jealous? Jungkook, hell I am, he said and crashed his lips upon hers. Jungkook's lips moved hurriedly against hers, a possessiveness she had never felt from him before. Vine gasped at the sudden kiss, but soon melted into it. Her body responded to the heat of his touch. She couldn't help but smile a little against his lips, finding his jealousy adorable. She pulled back slightly, her breath mingling with his. Fine. Even if I love this side of you, you don't need to be jealous of Yoongi. He's just my friend, she whispered, her voice teasing. Jungkook's eyes narrowed slightly, and he said, Doesn't mean I have to like how he looks at you, or how you light up around him. His thumb brushed her lower lip. She giggled softly, leaning in to press a light kiss on his nose. Fine. You're the only one I light up for like this. She smiled, trying to lift off his mood from jealousy. His expression softened slightly, his thumb tracing her cheek now. Jungkook, yeah, and you should light up like that only for me, no one else, he said, a small smirk forming on his lips. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer until their foreheads touched. Of course, you're my husband, my everything. His heart skipped a beat at her words. He smiled and said, Let's forget about him now. I want you all to myself tonight. He leaned down to kiss her once again. He was gentle this time, and she kissed him back too, without being shy at all. She loved him, and she wanted to show it to him, that no one can come between them, no matter how close she is to them. He is the only one for her. Jungkook held her waist and took her to the bed. He made her lie down on the bed and came upon her without breaking the kiss. He kept kissing until she was out of breath. They broke the kiss and he lay down beside her on the bed. He smiled because of the way she kissed him back. Jungkook, you really know how to calm me down. Fine. You're already calm, but I have a few more kisses to give you, Mr. John. Jungkook's cheeks blushed at the way she called him. Jungkook looked at her and said, Mine. Fine. Only yours. He leaned in again, sealing the night with another kiss.